rivers. And if you have a very polluted river, obviously it's not just affecting us, but it's affecting everything that lives on this river. Just today, and I've kind of kept an informal list of some of the birds we've seen and heard. And
I'm impressed.
About 35 different species, you know,
goodness.
give or take a few.
Paddling
That's not really sitting and trying to catch everything. I missed some. Probably the best bird was, where's the fellow who heard the Swainson's warbler? Bird that depends on river cane.
What's his name? What was it?
A Swainson's warbler?
Oh, okay.
Fairly uncommon bird.
Yes,
Oh,
very
really?
much.
What does it depend on, you said?
River cane.
Is that like a sugar?
River cane?
It's the only native bamboo we have.
Looking for
Oh, really?
some. And
Oh, is that it right here? Is that?
it's a tall grass, basically. It looks like bamboo. It's a very important thing to be along the river here. Chinese privets kind of displaced it.
Yeah.
Y'all know what privet is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's the sweet-smelling, white-flowering plant right now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Right.
Smells
Yeah.
so sweet. Ooh, you know you love it.
But one of the things about the rivers is the river cane would have been here, and that would have been the plant that would have held the banks and stuff together
Yep.
at one time. And unfortunately, it's sort of went the same way as the river. It's kind of, you only find spots of it now, and it's not as common as it should be. There's about 5 butterflies that depend on river cane for their host plant. So it's a very important plant. As far as animals, besides birds, we've seen tons of butterflies today.
Heron.
Heron right there.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I was on this bridge, and an osprey flew over me, which was really cool.
Really? Wow.
And as far as mammals, of course, we have foxes and river otter. A lot of folks didn't know, but river otters do use the South River. Of course, raccoons and
Deer.
possums and deer.
Yeah.
You'll probably find some deer footprints here if you look hard enough. They'll come down and use the water. And rivers are just fantastic oases for animals, but that's where a lot of things will concentrate, especially when there's droughts like we're in right now. The water is very important to a lot of animals, and you find a much more higher concentration of wildlife along the rivers. And my friend from EPD could probably tell you a little bit more about the river itself.
Well, I don't know how much more I can tell you about it, other than the fact that I live in the Entrenchment Creek subbasin, which is probably one of the most problematical subbasins we have in this river system. Within the city of Atlanta itself, they have a quasi-treatment plant CSO on it, which is not very functional most of the time, and during periods of high flow is pretty bad for the river.
Is that getting upgraded?
Huh?
Is that getting upgraded?
It was upgraded at one point, but they have a big chlorinator on it. The philosophy being, you know, when you get these big storm events, and rather than trying to capture all the sewage overflow, they just hyperchlorinate it with the belief that dilution is the solution to pollution, which, as we know, is pretty much a joke. So there's a lot of work to be done just in trying to get the city to recognize its responsibility to Entrenchment Creek. Now, Entrenchment Creek is one of the headwater tributaries to the South River, but the top headwater tributaries, everybody knows the Flint River comes out of the airport on the south side. The South River actually heads up on the north side of the airport. And actually I've been up to one of the headwater points on there, and the first point where water is actually daylighted comes out of these 2 huge 60-inch culverts. And one culvert is, the water coming out of it is just crystalline, but the culvert is lined with this white flocculent material. And apparently, historically, up above where the spring is, there had been an old cotton mill way back 100 plus years ago, and a lot of that flocculent material apparently may be some of the residual cotton. But I'm not really sure exactly what all that flocculent, but the water is just crystalline coming out of that side. Doesn't smell or anything, but I wouldn't drink it. The other culvert pipe, the water coming out of that is also crystalline, but this pipe is all corroded and rusted out and everything. And that comes out from the old Allied, the springs up at the top of that are where the old Allied chemical plant now resides. So no telling what's in that water. So these two giant pipes, there's a little plunge pool right there, and the water comes out of these two pipes into the plunge pool, and that's the headwaters, which is kind of scary to me. And then it comes down through the city of Atlanta, through the Lakewood area, and the golf course, Brownwood Golf Course, and then another treatment plant, though I think that water is actually pumped over to Utoy and ends up in the Chattahoochee. That's sewage water. And then as it comes under Moreland Avenue there into DeKalb County, it's already pretty compromised, the water quality at that point. So we have a lot of work ahead of us in reclaiming this river, so it's important that we, once I retire from EPD later this year, I'm going to be putting a lot of focus on working with the city of Atlanta and helping them recognize the issues they are going to need to start addressing there. Wildlife corridors. Here's an interesting story. I live not far from the zoo in the Grant Park, Ormwood area, the East Atlanta area. Pretty heavily urbanized, but one of the little feeder tributaries that comes up off of Entrenchment Creek is the property line in my backyard. And a number of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I was back there in the late fall and stuff. It's pretty heavily wooded in my backyard, and I'm looking through there and I see the shadow over across on the other side of the creek in my neighbor's backyard, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and the 6-point buck comes out. This is November. This is their rutting season. The 6-point buck comes out, and I'm going, my God, I can't believe it. There's the 6-point buck in my backyard within rock throwing distance of the state capitol almost. So I'm saying, and it kind of walks across a couple backyards up to this chain link fence and stops, and then turns around, walks back across several yards, and is standing at this driveway, at the base of this driveway. And then suddenly it turns and bolts again and runs back across those yards, over the chain link fence, through that yard, and goes on up the kudzu-laden draw in there. And I'm going, well, that was really neat. And then this guy appears at the base of this driveway, and he's all in these camouflage hunting clothes and stuff. And he sees me standing in my backyard, and he yells across, he said, "Did you see a big buck?" Yeah, he just ran up the draw and said, "Well, I'll be damned. I've been down in South Georgia the past week hunting, and I haven't seen a buck that big all week." And there he is. He drives home after a week of hunting in South Georgia and sees the biggest buck that he's seen all week right at the foot of his driveway in the middle of Atlanta. So these river corridors are very important to the animals that live along the river. And again, they add a lot of value to our own appreciation of what we got here. So that's my story.
The word panola actually is a Choctaw word. It means cotton. The first folks who settled this area were probably growing cotton along the banks of these rivers, like the South River. And of course, the Native Americans used the rivers like highways. They were water highways. And that's where all the trade would occur, and that's where the word panola actually came from. The Creek Indians who were here didn't have a word for cotton, but the Choctaw who traded amongst the settlers and other tribes had a word for cotton, and it's something like panola. So that's how the word kind of came to describe this area. So what we're doing today is probably something the Native Americans would have been doing hundreds of years ago, up and down the river, and you know, these were important places, the floodplains for growing food, hunting game.
While cotton wasn't a native plant, it was brought by Europeans. These areas were in heavy agriculture by the Indians for hundreds of years before we came along.
What were they growing?
Native food stocks, probably the early corn, the early maize corns, and probably certain root vines and stuff like that.
Sweet potatoes?
I doubt if they had sweet potatoes up here. Sweet potatoes are actually a tropical root stock, and I don't know if the white potato had been traded up here yet either, because that's from South America. It's a native plant to South America. But there's a lot of grains and stuff like that I'm sure the Native Americans had under agriculture.
The Three Sisters, right?
What's that?
The Three Sisters, corns, beans, and squash.
Yeah, lots of beans and squash. Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of everywhere on the planet.
What's interesting is we found pottery shards and stuff here really close to the river that were probably woodland period.
Beautiful.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
way back, thousands of years back.
Yeah.
They were utilizing these areas a long time ago.
Right.
Left all these tires in the river, right?
I'm sure they'd be very upset if they've seen what we've done with the resources.
Oh.
I
know my door.
On the entrenchment creek where it crosses Moreland into DeKalb, there's a great big shopping center right there. It's where the DMV used to have their stuff, and it's a really bad stormwater runoff there. Just past that is a construction landfill called Donzi, and they're about to close, and Commissioner Gannon's been working with them on establishing some grasslands and open at the top of it. You can't plant trees there because of a variety of reasons, but you can reestablish grasses, and we're hoping to we're working with the Audubon Society to get some bird watching opportunities in there. There's also an opportunity to work with PATH and link up that property to some of the other paths that are in that area. So that's coming in probably 2013 when they're closing up.
One bit of good news is we partner with the monastery every summer and do a North American Butterfly Association butterfly count. And Panola Arabian Mountain Monastery habitat is always #1 or #2 in the state for butterfly diversity. We're right up there with Piedmont Wildlife Refuge. So that's a bit of good news.
You got to get down there. I haven't been down that far yet. It's on my, definitely high on my list.
To think that our little place competes with a refuge that's thousands of acres.
Yeah,
and,
that's really wonderful.
We're right up there with them. A lot of times we beat them during, we kind of flip-flop every year, but this is our year.
Oh, okay.
Last year was their year, so it's our turn.
When's the count?
August.
August? Okay.
Is there a
have to get that.
Yeah, there's a ton flying around here. Just in this little beach here, I've probably seen about 5 species of butterflies.
Yeah.
Is there a grass test bed back over here?
There's a lot of grass up there.
Yeah, I know.
Probably about 20 acres of reestablished native grass.
Yeah, down heading over to that pond over there behind the house over there.
And, we've worked with non-game wildlife, the Nature Conservancy, Audubon Society. We've got a lot of partners. We started out working with the Native Plant Society, Elaine Nash.
Yeah, Elaine.
And I started years ago. We had a little 90-foot by 90-foot test plot. Now we have over 20 acres.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
Cool. Yeah.
What are they going to do to the dam down there out that lake? They talked about tearing out part of it again, the wetlands.
The DOT is supposed to mitigate the lower part of the lake for wetlands. Natural stream for
Is that project I was talking to you about? Yeah.
Was the Sandhill Crane resting spot ever established?
Yes. In the first year, we actually impounded an
Can you
area.
talk about that?
Years ago, we applied for a grant called a Power of Flight grant. and it's a $50,000 grant, but it had to be a matching grant. This is back when the DNR had a little bit of money. So we got the grant and established some semi-permanent wetlands up there. And the hope was that the migrating cranes, which also use the river corridors, and they use the South River Corridor a lot on their travels north and south. So our hope was that they would stop and rest here. And the first year we had the wetland, they stopped and rested here for a couple days.
Now, it's interesting that you brought up the matching grant thing, because a lot of these grants don't require a cash in-kind match, but you can do what's called an in-kind match, which is just basically labor and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's possible on some of these grants to use volunteer time as part of a match, but that would be something that this organization could look into partnering with y'all if you have opportunities to get grants and you need in-kind matches.
I used to call her a carrot, but
Yep,
Definitely look into that.
we did a few counts with her.